This is like a really good game to talk about offlaners because I did. If you guys missed it, I did another guide, or not a guide, but like a quick discussion of my thoughts when I was playing Sand King. I did a video. It's like 3 or 4 days old, and I was talking about like what to do in a rough lane or like a matchup where you can't really do anything to the carry and how you can play. And I think this is a great game to show how I can go from building first item Mana Boots Greaves to this, right?
Banana slam jam.
Oh, this is BSJ. I'm gonna quickly. This is gonna be another offlane video talking about kind of like another version of your job in the game and how I picked my hero, the vision I had for the game, and why that affected my itemization and how I played the map. So this is a video that's meant to basically give you some pointers, talking about, hey, this is what these heroes do. This is how you analyze matchups. This is what you can do in the draft, especially in this like 2-2-1 pick phase that's currently going on. So first and foremost, I had Bane Mirana as my supports. And I had Shadow Demon Chen that were picked as the opponent two supports when I saw my pick. Anti-Mage was banned, which is one of the worst matchups for Sand King, if not the worst. So I felt very confident to pick Sand King here. The reason why I like Sand King with Mirana is it's just a nice low cooldown stun that sets up the arrow. If you were to watch this game back, that didn't really fucking matter because this Mirana did not understand that, but that's fine. But it's nice because it has innate mobility against Shadow Demon's Purge, and it's a hero that can defend towers really well against Chen. So I see these enemy supports and I say, well, I want a hero that doesn't die to Shadow Demon and a hero that can kind of nullify what Chen does in the game. So that's basically the idea behind why I picked my hero. It synergizes decently with my support. The hard counter is banned. It doesn't die to Shadow Demon like a lot of other offlaners do because they get purged and they can't move. And it also deals with the Chen's push mid-game. That's the biggest thing. If you see supports, if you see even a core in the first round, every hero in the game represents this is how I'm going to play the game. Chen literally says, we're going to run at towers and we're going to try to use our massive creep army to just overpower you, right? And if I didn't pick a hero that deals with this, I'm either relying on my teammates to do it, or I'm relying on like having to buy extra items to do it, or maybe use like 3 heroes to do it. So we're going to fast forward through the laning stage. We're just going to ignore this part. So coming out of the laning stage, it was a bit awkward. Mirana and I weren't on the same page. But needless to say, I want my Ursa to be farming. I want my Leshrac to be rotating to towers. And I want myself to basically be filling in the gaps in our draft. And I already talked about why I picked my hero. And this is a game where I see like, hey, I'm going to defend towers. That's my role in the game. Any tower that I think I can defend, I'm going to do that. What item did I go in order to do that first? I went Vanguard. I think it's pretty straightforward against Chen. If I think my job in the game is to defend towers, why I would go first item Vanguard. So I start the game without a Vanguard, right? I don't have a Vanguard yet, 8 minutes in. So I let top tower go. We don't think about defending this tower. I think about my job in the game is to defend towers. What item do I need to build it? When can I do it? If I think I can do it without a Vanguard, by all means, I'm going to TP top and defend that tower. But in my eyes, I'm like, okay, I need this Vanguard to defend this tower. So I'm going to play around bottom instead, set up for my Leshrac to push, which he did, which was great. Even if he didn't do this, I'd at least be pressuring the tower, getting farm, but it obviously wouldn't be as good because, you know, the Leshrac could have taken the tower. So I'm just saying, even if you had teammates not doing the right thing, I can't defend towers, so I might as well try to pressure them, right? That's how I'm thinking about it. Sand King's not a hero that you're looking to be blinking around the map this early. Your hero farms really fast. You are very hard to kill because of your invis as well as your innate mobility. And a lot of times in the early to mid game, you can kind of just walk into fights. So we take this tower, and I got this Vanguard now. Coming up very soon. So I'm taking the safe farm on the map, and I've communicated around this time that I'm like, hey guys, I've got a Vanguard. I will be defending all of the dangerous towers. So we talk about the dead lane concept. We talk about the order of objectives that people take. If they're Radiant, they take top tier 1 first. They take mid tier 1 or top tier 2 second. That's what they're going to do. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, my job to defend towers. Any tower that ever needs to be defended is me. those 2 towers are mid and top. So the biggest thing I can't do is like TB bottom, for instance, or, you know, not be there in time to defend my top tower. So otherwise, if those towers are not being pressured, I can do whatever I want, right? That's the emphasis as like an offlaner when it comes to farming. You need to think about your role in regards to your teammates, and you need to think about like responsibilities that you have to your team, because you want to farm, you are a core, but because you're not the one position, you have to prioritize making sure the opponent isn't just like consuming the map, taking a ton of objectives, running at your team constantly. You can't be like super greedy as an offlane player. So in this case, I push out the mid lane, making sure, and then I TP top. Notice that all the moves the opponent makes is going to be on our side of the map. Even if this doesn't lead to anything, they have Luna Chin. I'm just trying to stop them from taking towers. That's all I care about. So I TP top. I ran mid, pushed the wave, TP top. Everything I do is with the idea of defending these towers. Every move I make, every step I take, I am watching these guys push towers, okay? And I'm not letting them. So notice how I'm going to put myself around mid. Because there's no tower to defend, I have a little bit of time to jungle, which is great. This mid lane's always going to be pushed, no matter what. We're going to keep fast forwarding. And the thing is, you may argue Blink Dagger, any other item like that, right? And the idea is, if I go Blink Dagger first, I'm going to blink into them and die, right? Because they have all these summons, all of these like small instances of damage where I just die. And if the lanes are all shoved into our towers, it's not good enough to like blink, stun, and initiate onto them with epicenter, right? That works one time. And then after my epicenter's on cooldown, they're just going to run down a lane and take our towers. So the idea behind it is, for people who are clear, you can't give the opponent windows of opportunity. And so here I think, okay, first we have to shut down their push. I have an Ursa. He's going to go Battle Fury. I have to make space for him. And that space means stop the opponent from taking towers. And it has to be constant, because they don't have a lineup with like a Terrorblade where they use meta and siege towers. They have a lineup with Chin Luna, which can kind of just siege towers all the time. It's like a constant threat of sieging towers. So like if I was more concerned about like an all-in tower push, maybe I'd consider a Blink Dagger so I could shut it down. But in this case, it's like they're going to consistently shove our towers. I need to consistently be able to stop them from taking towers. So notice I'm going to keep putting myself in front of towers. And walking, I TP top, walked mid. Same idea as before. Push out the lane. So the Yule Scepter before Crimson. In my opinion, the way this game's going, since Ursa's still farming, and we have like a pick-off heavy lineup, the team fights aren't going to happen yet. What's going to happen is I need to be able to be more mobile. I saw the Void Spirit going for an Orchid, and I also want a way to dodge their massive burst damage from the Luna. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I'm going to Burrow Strike into fights. I have this Vanguard. The only way I die now is getting full to zeroed by Eclipse. So I have this Yule Scepter. So here, my teammates are making a play. The only reason I don't mind making a play is because the opponent is not threatening my towers at the current moment. Yeah, Dubu's pushing top on Chin or whatever. But at the end of the day, I didn't feel like the opponent was threatening our tower. So even if they're doing a little bit of damage top, notice how my Ursa, since they're not all there, can actually defend this tower. I'm only doing it if I think it's dangerous, because it is farm, right? I don't want to take farm from my cores if I don't have to. And even though we ended up dying there, I'm perfectly fine with that fight. This is a game where, because they have Luna Chin, if no towers are dying, I'm happy. We're a tower ahead. We still have our mid tower. Notice how here, because they were all just respawning, I actually let my Leshrac have the mid wave. I let him farm the wave underneath tower. But now I'm like, okay, they're all back in action. This tower is now scary. They could be smoke ganking. They could be making a move. I'm now going to make my way to mid tower. So we're going to notice how I'm just being a nuisance. They can't push into me because I'm too tanky to get bursted, and Sandstorm's just a shit ton of damage. That's what Sandstorm does. So I'm going to walk my way to top, same idea. Notice how all their moves are top and mid. And you may say, BSJ, what if I'm in the shit tier where nobody's making moves? Well, that makes it even easier for you, because if they're not actually making moves, then you can just defend the tower without having to worry about being well positioned, or maybe you could do it without the perfect items, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to be a nuisance and defend the tower, and this is where I make my first major mistake of the game. I saw their Void Spirit mid, who's their do shit kind of hero. I genuinely should have just defended this tower like I did and ran straight mid, because even though there's a wave right here, this tower is not under threat. It is the mid tower that is under threat. And I'm actually late this time. I decide to farm one more wave, and guess what? I end up losing my mid tower as a result. So that was actually a big mistake from my part, and something to consider is, like, notice how the second I'm not there in time, tower dies. The second I am late, tower dies. So we take a nice fight, we get Roche, and I go for this Yules, and then at this point, because I've addressed their tower push, because I've addressed my own survivability, and also the mana regen's really nice for my hero, now the thought is, what do I do to make my team's game easier? Like, what does my team need? We have a lot of pickoff, but we don't have any long-range pickoff. So in this case, I'm like, okay, now it's time for a blink. So I'm going to get a blink that allows us to get long-range pickoffs, allows us to force fights. And then I go back for the Crimson, because at that point, we're forcing fights, and now I need the item that is in fights, right? At this point, we haven't taken a straight-on 5v5 yet. And this is something you can start paying attention to. I'm not telling you, if you're watching this video, that you have to understand exactly when 5v5s are going to occur, but something to just start thinking about. Like, why would there be a 5-on-5? Do I want a 5-on-5? Look at my heroes, look at theirs. We have Bane Mirana, not team fighting supports. We have an Ursa who went Battle Fury, doesn't want a team fight. Lesh, while yes, he has some AoE damage, in the early game does have some squishiness issues, so he needs like 1 or 2 items before he wants to actually fight. So we have a very skirmish-heavy, stop the opponent from pushing type of lineup. And this is something that you can learn to gauge if you think about the mindset correctly and then watch players that are higher MMR than you and how they itemize the game. This is a game where, even though I don't have too much experience on SK, I feel like I had massive impact, and it felt like the game was just very straightforward to me, and it felt like all I had to do was just be in the right place based on what I knew about the game, and it easily worked out. At that point, maybe push some buttons correctly too, but you know me, that's probably not going to happen. So, wanted to quickly talk about my item progression in this game and why I went the items I did. Itemization is all about understanding the flow of the game, understanding the order of events that are going to occur, your team's strengths and weaknesses, the opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and what your job in that, whole equation is. So I think this was a great game to talk about, and I didn't have that great of a lane, but I still feel like I shut down all of their pushes for the most part, and then did everything my hero needed to do in teamfights. Would Underlord perform the same role this game? Yes. Underlord would do the part for the opponent, like dealing with the opponent team, but he dies to Shadow Demon, and he does not synergize with Mirana. So I talk about drafting, and I talk about how you can learn the options that heroes have in the game. Like, every hero has somewhere between 1 to 5 ways they can play the game, like things they can offer their teammates. And usually when I talk about, hey, there's a Chen lineup, there's a hero that deals with it to help mitigate the early pushes, there's pretty much any hero in the game that can tank through summons and have D-push, right? Like, that's any hero in the game that fits that description. So there's maybe 5 to 10 offlaners that fit that role. And then, once you understand that that's the role your hero has to fulfill, yeah, sure, you'll pick Underlord, and you'll be like, oh, then I died to Shadow Demon. Fuck, I did the job in the game, but I kept dying to Shadow Demon. Maybe you would have okay, I understood my role in the game, but my hero died to Shadow Demon. So what hero in the offlane wouldn't die to Shadow Demon? Right? In this case, you may learn something. So that's the goal of these types of analysis, is that you can refine your hero pick very specifically. There's other... I'm not saying this to, suck my own dick. I think SK was by far the best pick, and I think there's other heroes that could have done his job, but all of them either didn't synergize with my team as well, or would die much easier to Shadow Demon. So, I really do think the only reason I made a video out of this game was it really was a great pick, and it felt so easy to play this game because my pick made sense. So that's why I'm trying to help you guys. So I hope it tell you something.
Much obliged.